Good evening, everybody. Hope life is treating you all well for those of you that are joining me. I'm going to try and do this about once a week and just have Q&A sessions or topics. Maybe I'll shoot out a couple of polls on what you guys exactly want to talk about and learn about. But want to try and do live to be here to answer some questions, whether it's your senior kind of going through the application process, you're getting back, your decisions, if you got in, if you were waitlisted, kind of what to expect. If you did early decision, what are your options? If you didn't get a good financial aid package, we can talk about it all. But no, just excited to educate, teach as much as I possibly can. So I know that there was a few questions that came through kind of prior to tonight that I wanted to be able to answer. I did a FAFSA live session a couple weeks back. If you haven't seen my channel, TikTok right now and YouTube both have every single FAFSA question, how to answer them. So if you have, you know what question you're looking for, you can browse my profile. I think I have a collection on a couple of the different platforms as well. You may see a recent change. Everything is, going to Joe the College Pro. So if you have not spoken to me or heard of me before, I am Joe Kearns. I'm a certified college planning specialist, a certified college funding specialist, a certified college financial consultant, and an education loan analyst, which makes me the most credentialed college financial planner in the country. So yeah, Joe the College Pro is what I'm going by now, and I'm basically here to tell you everything you need to know about college planning, financial aid, and how the whole system works. So if you guys have questions, just shoot them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing here. We'll see how things go, and looking to do this, like I said, once a month, and probably this time, usually Mondays at 8. It's probably 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the best time that I usually can make it work with my schedule. So I'm looking to do that for most of the time. But there's a couple of good questions that I've gotten on my social media accounts that I figured I would start with those that were, I guess, interesting. One was mainly when it came to a 529 account and how 529s are treated between FAFSA and CSS profile. So if you're unaware of both of those, because I don't know where you're at in the process, but the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. Pretty much every school is going to require you to do that. And yes, you should always do it regardless of what you think you're going to get in financial aid. If you think you're not going to qualify for aid, don't assume. It's the easiest way to overpay for college. Some schools won't give you merit-based money unless you fill out that FAFSA. So yes, you always want to do it. Most states, if you potentially do qualify for state-based aid, again, you have to do that as almost every single state. As I'm also highlighting now, I'm going to go through all 50 states over the next couple of weeks, kind of highlight what their main financial aid programs are for every state. So be on the lookout for those when your state comes up. But the CSS profile is one that is, I'll say, not as common in the college world. And it's done through the College Board. There's about 400 schools that use the CSS profile. Typically, they are private schools, and usually they're private schools with a pretty high sticker price. Now, the CSS profile does a deeper dive into your finances than the FAFSA does. Asks a lot more questions, especially now that the FAFSA got simplified, and a lot more details. And probably the biggest thing that is different between the two is from the bad side. If you own a home, the FAFSA does not include your primary home equity, whereas the CSS profile does. So that's not great. But as the FAFSA made that big change last year for if you have 2 kids in school, you potentially could qualify for more aid. They got rid of that. The CSS profile has not. So if you have multiple kids, the CSS profile is actually a little bit more lenient. It can be pretty shocking for some families to realize, FAFSA might say you can afford 60 grand a year, whereas the CSS profile might be 20 to 25,000. And the other thing that's interesting there is the schools that use the CSS profile are those that are very generous. So when you kind of hear all these things right now, if you make under $100,000 or $120,000, tuition is free at this school. Well, the reality is it was pretty much always the case because of the financial aid formula, and they use the CSS profile and they say, all right, when we do this, this is how much we think you can afford. We're going to meet whatever the gap is. So if we cost 90 grand and we think you can afford 20, we're going to give you $70,000 to come here. So yeah, they basically were already covering tuition, but colleges are businesses, and if they can kind of get this marketing out that people, it hits home. Oh, if you make under this, tuition's free, right? Well, for some schools, you still got to pay for room and board. So the reality is that, yeah, it was always this way. From it's not that much different. It's not something that's brand new. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's just the way the system works. So just wanted to familiarize yourself a little bit with these things. So the 529 college savings plan, probably the most well-known. Some people would say the best or the only way to save for college. And I'm here to tell you is the most credentialed college planner in the country. Not the case. They have their place. It's not for everyone. Honestly, for the majority of America, they're not the best way to save for college. But the big difference is the FAFSA, since it went through this change, the FAFSA only asks for a 529 account balance that the parent is the owner of, and that the student who's filling out the FAFSA is the beneficiary. So if you have multiple kids, you have multiple 529s, the beneficiary of a 529 is a different child, the one that's not going to school, then you don't have to list those. The CSS profile doesn't care. So CSS profile is going to say, we don't care if you have, three kids and 529s and all, we want the total balance because we know that you can change the beneficiary and use it for whatever you want. So they ask for the whole amount. The other big thing is when the 529 is in what's called an UTMA account. So this is where the minor actually owns it. A lot of people mistakenly put the 529 on the FAFSA as an asset of the student. 99 times out of 100, it's the student is the beneficiary. The parent is the owner, and that's where it would go under, the parent assets, not the students. So on the FAFSA, if you have an UTMA-owned 529, then you put that under the parent section, even though it's an asset of the student, right? The student is the owner and the beneficiary. For FAFSA purposes, you only put that under the parent section. Under the CSS profile section, an UTMA-owned 529 is an actual student asset. And why that is significant is parent assets are assessed, I'm using round numbers here, about 5% of the asset is what's used to kind of go into this formula and saying this is what you can afford for college. The problem is that the CSS profile treats that UTMA 529 as an asset of the student, which 25% is assessed. So in other words, if you had $100,000 in 529s as mom and dad, right, it's $5,000. 5% of that is going to be, say, hey, you can afford $5,000 more on top of everything else because you have those 529s. And that's, yeah, you can afford $5,000 more per year. So $100,000 of a 529 potentially increase your cost of college by $20,000 over 4 years. And hopefully you're in and out in 4 years. When that same $100,000, if it's in an UTMA-owned 529 and it's the CSS profile, it's 25%. So now they think you can afford this, the $100,000 in the UTMA. Hey, now you can afford $25,000 a year. In other words, we're going to take all of that money over a 4-year time span. So it can definitely really hurt your financial aid eligibility. So that was a question I got that I thought had wanted to do a good answer on that one. So thank you for that question. And if you guys do have questions that, you want to get answers to, put them on comment on one of my videos and I will hopefully be able to get to it. There was a couple other ones ahead. If you guys have questions, bring them out. I'm all good to answer your questions tonight. I had actually, this one came through a couple times where people were saying, I'm just inherited money or I'm about to inherit money. Do I have to disclose that? Well, if it's in your account. Yes. The financial aid forms, you have to fill out the forms, whatever the balance is of your accounts, checking, savings, investments, the day that you fill out, you make that submission. And it's whatever the balance is. So if you received that inheritance yesterday and you're going to fill it out today, you got to include it. If you know an inheritance is on the way, say next week, and you fill it out today, you do not have to disclose it. So it's at the time that you have to the value of the day that you submit is the value that you're putting on those forms. There's no look back on assets. There's only a look back on the taxes. Yeah. Which also got a big question that I constantly am getting online. What is the base year? What's the year that people are tax returns are used? So it's the end of the year. It's the end of the year. So for you juniors, you have a child that's a junior in high school. It's 2024. It's this past year. So at the end of the year, you don't want to do anything that's going to artificially increase your adjusted gross income, because that potentially is going to have a domino effect and increase what you pay for college. And for sophomores, sophomore year of high school, guess what? January 1st is when this whole process officially starts. So anything that is done between starting January 1st is now going to be seen on a tax return that the colleges will see. So that's called your base year. So for sophomores, it's 2025. For juniors, it's 2024. And for you seniors that are filling out financial aid paperwork right now, the tax information that they're using is from last year, from 2023. So 2 years prior to graduation is the tax year that is used. And why that's important to know, especially for you parents of sophomores. Yeah, you don't want to do anything next year that artificially inflates your student aid index or EFC, but anything that you do that could show capital gains, sell a business, move it, potentially cash out of an IRA, take money out of a Roth IRA, even though it's not taxable, it still shows up on a tax return as untaxed income. So you don't want to do that as well. Yeah. So if you have a sophomore and you're worried about some ways that you're going to draw some income from some of your assets next year, reach out to me, because you could have, again, this domino effect that could have been avoided, which honestly, most mistakes that happen in the college world, a lot of them could have been avoided. And procrastination is the biggest killer of college dreams, without a doubt. Doesn't matter what you're looking at from a savings perspective, paying financial aid, admissions, procrastination is always the mortal enemy of good college planning. So yeah, sophomore, you might not know it, but it starts next year. We're only a couple weeks away before colleges could potentially see your picture. Let me go through a couple of the other questions I wanted to answer. Grandparent 529s was another one that constantly came up, or aunt-owned godparent. So again, FAFSA, you're only reporting anything that mom and dad are the owner of and that child going to school is the beneficiary of. If the child's the owner in that UTMA 529 situation, that is listed, but is listed as the parent asset question. So that's how you would list it. Any grandparent-owned stuff has to be disclosed on the FAFSA. Now, the CSS profile, a little bit different, because the CSS profile question is asking, is the student the beneficiary of any college savings plan? So technically, you do have to list that, but there are many situations that arise that the parents just wouldn't know that maybe a grandparent or aunt and uncle had a 529 for them. So you list what you are aware of, but the question is worded differently on both of those forms. So technically, yeah, the student is the beneficiary of a 529. That's what they're asking for. So that is something that should be included. But again, there's also ways to make sure that it's not. You just have to talk to the right people and still do things legally, always. Oh, it's good coffee. Yeah, not at 8 o'clock at night. It's not coffee I'm drinking. So you guys, if you've got any college questions, financial aid, college admissions, anything that's on your mind, feel free to shoot it on over. Be happy to bring it in. Let me see here. What else we got going on? Hey, Joe, I took a personal loan out that was used for some home improvements. Do I get to list that anywhere on the FAFSA? Fortunately, you do not. And if it's not a home equity line of credit or something that's actually tied to your equity, it's not going to really be included on the CSS profile either. So loans are not big. Potentially some student loans can be asked about and answered on the CSS profile. But other than that, loans aren't going to do anything. Um, if you are divorced, separated, I had a ton of questions come in about who's supposed to fill out the FAFSA. I could probably spend the whole half hour going through that. Look at my past videos, especially I did like FAFSA. I think there's part like 1, 2, and 3, and then there's multiple parts for I think part 3. But take a look at my videos because they are uh, the best way to really dive it out. It depends on if your parents are married, right? And by parents, I mean biological or adopted parents. If they're married, then kind of it's a series of questions, and it would determine, who has to fill things out. If they're not married but they're living together, it's the same as married. If they're married but they're not living together, they're separated. That's the same as divorced and separated from the FAFSA perspective. Um, and then if you have parents that are divorced or separated, then it goes into even further questions like who provides more financial support. That's the parent that needs to provide information. And if that parent is remarried, their spouse also has to provide information. So I really go through all of those in a couple of my videos that you feel free to check them out so that you get what you need from those as well. Let's see, what else do we got? Comment was here. Oh, yes. I was curious about this one because somebody wrote, I'm a broke teacher, and they said I make too much to qualify for aid. I can't afford to further my education. So a couple things. There is not as much aid that goes around for graduate students, right? If you're an adult, the situation is very, very different than if you're a dependent versus an independent in the financial aid world. Um, Especially if you've already received your degree, there's a ton of financial aid that you are now no longer eligible for. There's probably specific programs that you can find, but nowhere near as much. And usually the only financial aid that's going to be offered from a grad side of things, especially from a government standpoint, it's really just government loans. You can borrow a lot more than an undergrad can, right? They limit you pretty significantly. It's $5,500 year one, $7,500 year two, or 65 year two, 7,500 year three, and year four. But there's something called a grad plus loan, and that is significantly more amount that you can borrow as a independent student that's already received your degree. So yeah, your income and assets don't mean a lot because if you think about it, anybody who's going to grad school that was a full-time student last year doesn't have a lot of assets and income, most likely. So everybody's eligible for benefits. The honest truth is the only benefits you can get is a government loan that's deferred and usually not as high interest elsewhere, potentially. But yeah, so it's one of the time that people are, it's not exactly great. If you're a grad student, options aren't really there. You got to really look other words, internships and, tuition assistance programs potentially at work. But yeah, not always there. The only other benefit you get is if you did have federal loans, then they will also be deferred. If you're back in grad school, you don't have to make payments, right? But they most likely will still accrue interest, which isn't great. Hypothetically, if they're unsubsidized, they'll still keep growing. And then we had another question. I had somebody asked, when you do have eventually your FAFSA that has been processed, do you see the aid right away? So it's a little bit different. You can look at your submission summary and you can see a estimate, kind of like what aid you're potentially eligible for and what you may receive. But the reality is the government doesn't really give you the money. Like, you don't get money from FAFSA. The FAFSA information is basically relayed to your schools. The schools, if they accept you, will give you a financial aid award, right? So you'll get an award letter that say, hey, this is our cost of attendance, meaning is what it is to come here for tuition, fees, room and board, books, travel expenses, personal expenses, right? Everything that it is for just one year. And then they'll lay out what they're offering you in financial aid. So on that aid package is where you will officially see what money you were getting from the government, if you got a subsidized or unsubsidized loan, if they're offering you a work study, if the school is giving you any specific grants or scholarships from their own institutional money, kind of like their endowment funds and things like that. So you won't truly know how much aid you're getting until you get the acceptance and then the financial aid package. That's when you'll know what aid you're truly getting, because the FAFSA, again, the FAFSA was just one part of the equation. You got to get accepted before you even know what aid you're offered. If the school's not going to accept you, they're not going to say this is how much money you would get from us. They're not taking you. So you will not see really what aid you will get right away. FAFSA, it may say you're eligible for a Pell Grant, maximum Pell Grant, or some type of Pell Grant or work study. But it will not be 100% transparent that this is all the financial aid that you're going to receive. So wanted to touch on that as well. What else I got going on? So a couple other big things. If you have not checked us out, the College Knowledge Podcast, I'm the co-host of the College Knowledge Podcast. With Dave Kozak. He's the CEO of Elite Collegiate Planning and the College Planning Network. We have a kind of a new format that's on the horizon. We're going to, look to have some fun with that. But we are also going to be doing, it was a big announcement, Tuesday, January 14th. Now, this is not applicable to everyone. It's basically if you're a parent that has a child that is a junior or younger, or if you're a soon-to-be parent, right? It's you the only people that aren't allowed to come on this. It's not reserved for anybody that's already in college, or if you have your youngest child is a senior or older, not going to be applied to you. So on Tuesday, January 14th, Dave Kozak and I, the co-host of the College Knowledge Podcast, are going to be doing a pretty intense college planning masterclass. It's really just meant to give you, I won't say everything you need to know, but without a doubt, the baseline of information that you need to be dangerous for this game, and what you have to be prepared for, the timeline of things, how scholarships really work, how financial aid really works. We're very much looking forward to it. It's going to be a registration process. So once the registration is open, you definitely follow my page, because I'll be doing plenty of posts about that. And so you can reserve your spot, but seats are going to be limited. And like I said, you have to have a junior or younger in high school to be on that. And honestly, all you're going to end up seeing, if you have a senior or older, is all the things that you should have done. And there's not much that can be done after that. At least that's what this presentation is going to be about. Check us out, the College Knowledge Podcast. We're on everything from YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Got a couple great episodes coming up. We just interviewed an admissions counselor from, oh God, where was he from? I'm losing my mind. I was about to say Salisbury, and I'm like, wait, was that where he was from? Because I just was talking with somebody who just got accepted to Salisbury, and they were all about it. I'm like, now, did I mix those two up? I think it was Salisbury. Pretty sure that's what it was. Maybe I'm just losing my mind. It's also late, and the coffee's not doing it for me. I think it was Salisbury. I don't know. It is late. But we got a great episode with that one coming up. We did a DEI in college episode, and just, a little bit of things, everything here and there. I believe the next recording we're going to do is all about women's sports and the landscape and how it's changing, especially Division I scholarships, how that's going to completely change the landscape of college athletics moving forward. If you don't know what's going on there, take a look at that, because that is potentially very different than how things are now from a scholarship perspective. That's supposed to take place next year. So, and I think that's pretty much all I got. I didn't see any other questions come in. Let me check. I didn't see anything else come in. So if you guys got any other questions, I'll hang on and keep sipping away here. But college questions. Anything you got? All right, sounds good. So, looking at my calendar, I don't think next week, the week of Christmas, I will be live Monday night. I may do a short episode on uh, the 23rd. I might do an episode maybe at like 5 o'clock. I'll announce when I'm coming on, but look, maybe I'll do something on at around 5 o'clock. And then the week after that, I might do the same thing, like 5 o'clock on Monday the 30th. And then I think I'm planning on, almost every Monday night in 2025, for the most part, doing like 8 o'clock live on all the different social media platforms. So if you are looking to have college questions answered, make sure to mark it on your calendar and meet with me, Joe the College Pro. Other than that, Tuesday, January 14th, huge night there. If you have a junior or younger, it's a night you will not want to miss. So definitely come on board and follow me for all the updates that we'll be having from there. I think that's really all I got tonight, guys, because I didn't see anything else come in, but this was kind of last minute. I just said, you know what, why don't I go live? So I wasn't expecting too much, but if you were watching, thank you. And if you have some any time to watch my videos, shoot comments, maybe I'll be able to answer them either in a post or on these live sessions that I'll be doing hopefully weekly, as long as the calendar and, the family and the wife schedule permit it. So until next time, I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful Christmas if I'm not live next year or next week, but I probably will definitely be on before the end of 2024, at least one more time. So until next time, stay safe, stay strong, stay sane, and wish you all the best. Take care.